as you guys can probably see on the screen, our guest, Norman Cohn, ASI founder, president. What is your title over there?
Chairman of the board.
There it is. There it is. The top of the top. Like I said, it was a fantastic series. If you guys didn't have a chance to listen to it, go over to SoundCloud or over to Promo Journal at PromoCorner.com and listen to all of the amazing episodes. It was a fantastic series put together by the amazing interviewer, Steve Woodburn. That is going to be all I'm going to say today. I'm actually going to turn it over to Steve and let him and Norman take it over from here. So I will be here, guys. If you have any questions, put them in the chat box. We'll make sure we get them to the guys.
Thanks so much, Brandon. And thank you, Norman, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me back. You guys do an amazing job.
Well, thank you. It was fun to interview you, and you truly are, as Brandon said, an icon in the industry. You've been in the business, what, 70 years?
Yes.
Thereabouts?
And I guess an icon just means you're very old.
Yeah, that's probably true. But I certainly enjoyed interviewing you and learning your story. And that's what this series is all about, is learning the people's stories that we interview. You know, I think it's interesting to me that a lot of the younger people that have gotten into this industry in, say, the last 5, 6, 7 years, they have no clue how long and how old and storied this business is. I wrote a story one time, a blog post about how the first promotional products theoretically were campaign buttons for George Washington. So it's got a long history. Neither of us have been in the business quite that long, but we've been, I just think it's interesting. People don't understand the history. So that's what we're trying to do is help the younger people understand there is a history to this business. And that's what has made it such a great place to work, because of people like you.
Well, thank you.
You know, one of the things I forgot to ask you when I interviewed you is, you mentioned at some point there's something like 1 million products out there. So what is your favorite, or what are your favorite promotional products?
I like many, truthfully. I use many, I always have, even before I discovered this industry, or the industry discovered me, whatever. However, I like lit products. My wife isn't nearly as impressed when I have things that light up as I am. I also like fireworks, which is a different part of light up, I suppose. But in any regard, there are so many exciting products. I'll tell you the truth. I've walked the trade shows since the beginning of my experience in the industry. And PPA had trade shows. They were room shows, not like we have booth shows in a hotel, even before I was in the industry. And it amazes me at every show how many products that I would never have thought of to be putting a logo on. And some of them, I've been in the industry, you find this maybe easy to believe, before there were wearables. And now wearables are a third of the industry. But when I was in this industry, there were 0 wearables. It was a big event when it was introduced in the industry that you could sell a t-shirt with a logo on it. And so, I use calendars, I use all kinds of ballpoint pens. So to pick out a favorite is difficult, but I do enjoy using them, and they work.
Does your wife let you keep things around the house, promotional products around the house?
More in the office, to be honest with you. My wife has great taste. I've been blessed. We've been married 56 years. And she has far better taste than I. So she says that if she let me decorate our house, it would look like Disneyland. So most of the promotional products that I love are in my office.
Okay. And that, for those that haven't had a chance yet to listen to the series, that's an amazing story of how you met your wife.
Yes, I was very lucky. God smiled on my parade.
And 56 years, that's a long time to be married. And kudos to you both for that.
Well, I got lucky, and I've been very happy besides being lucky. And thank you.
Good. So one of the things you mentioned in one of the podcasts was the fact that you've always had professional managers at ASI versus you or your family heading it up. Why is that?
I learned from my father, try to surround yourself with people smarter than you are. And sometimes it isn't so hard to find smarter, particularly in technology. And our current president and CEO, been with us more than 14 years, Tim Andrews, does a terrific job and cares about the industry. And my family are an advisory group. So we meet often and hear what plans are, what's going on. And Tim makes decisions, and this is the truth, that aren't always the decisions we agree with. However, he has the ultimate authority. Even though our family own the company, we don't think that our judgment is better than the team that Tim has put together. And most of the time, his decisions are on target. And even when they miss the target, I mean, COVID, for example, 2 years ago, if you'd have said to me, someday something's going to happen, you're going to close your office and the 400 employees are going to work from home, I'd have been polite, but I said, well, anything's possible. And if you'd have said it could work seamlessly, I again hope I'd have been polite, but as you walked off to talk to somebody else, I would have said to one of my family, you know, Steve, I thought he was bright. He knows a lot about the industry, but knows nothing about our business. However, from day in February where we announced the office was closing, we thought for a few weeks at most. It's been over a year and a half that people have worked from home in our business, although there's 40 or so there every day. It's worked, and I believe for the industry as well.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you, is how the pandemic has affected ASI. So you closed the office and it's still pretty much closed for the majority of the people, it sounds like.
Yes.
How have people adapted to working via Zoom or whatever, you use for staying connected?
We use Teams, but all of those concepts work. When I talk to my family, I'm on Zoom. This, of course, is for me a Zoom call. But it has worked amazingly well. We've always had employees that weren't in our office, particularly salespeople, throughout the United States. And we still have in Waterloo, Iowa, our technology computer software development business was where I started from. But I think the exciting thing about our industry, it's mostly small businesses. There are a few giants. And most of the small businesses are owned by entrepreneurs. So they've been able to pivot. And again, if you'd have said to me 2 years ago, would you guys ever think about bringing in masks imprinted or sanitizers or floor masks? Again, I'd like to be a polite person, so I would have said, well, we hadn't really thought about that. However, those companies that were bright enough to pivot quickly had better years in 2020. 2019 was the best year our industry's ever had, I think, for almost everybody. But in 2020, those that pivoted quickly had better years than they had in 2019. And those that didn't pivot for whatever reason were down anywhere from 20 to 40%. The industry as a whole was down $5 billion from 25 billion to 20 billion in sales in the 1 year because of COVID, and is coming back relatively quickly. But the reality is that the fact that we are made up of these entrepreneurs who are able to see what their customers want and provide it more quickly than if they were a giant company that, this is how we did it last year, 10 years ago, so this is how we're going to do it now. So the industry has certainly changed. And now our big problem, well, COVID's still a problem for a lot of reasons. But as you know, you don't have to read very far to find this out. It's not just our industry. The whole supply chain is bending at best, maybe broken reality. And the cost of shipping has gone up amazingly. If you were a supplier, as you once were, brought items in from Asia, the cost of bringing them, if you can get them, is extraordinarily more than it used to be. Then there are no truck drivers in America, or there's a big shortage of truck drivers in America, and there's a big shortage of help in America. And people are paying amazing prices, not for the product only, because there is inflation, but they're paying employees. And there's a huge turnover as compared to what there used to be. Many jobs out there, if you have the talent, that are useful to have those jobs. So I think that's the problem this year. We just had a show in Nashville, one of our meet the major salespeople type. And the thing that we came back from that show is the number one product in our industry today is not an item, not even a particular supplier. It's the ability to deliver to your end user on time. And it's amazing how much everybody's struggling to do that. And that will end someday. And if I knew the day, would I be smart? But I don't. Anyway, we've gone from being seriously affected by COVID to being seriously affected by the supply chain.
I read, I think it was yesterday, in round numbers, a container now to get it over here from Asia is about 20,000, whereas a year ago it was 4,000.
That's exactly the numbers that I've heard, yes.
That's absolutely crazy. And it used to be, when I first got in this business, and obviously when you did too, long before I did, there was no rush. A rush was 4 or 5 weeks. And then it got to where a few years ago, it was 24 hours, sometimes same day, which is to me totally amazing. And now with the supply chain issues, it's back to there's no rush again anymore. You may get something in a week, you may get it in 3 weeks, you may not get it.
When we were once, our family was once a supplier, for a brief time, the largest supplier in the industry, a long time ago, much smaller industry, don't be impressed, but I only make this point. When we were a supplier, we had, for a brief time, the ability to deliver in, when we came in the industry, as you point out, 30 days. If an end buyer placed an order, no matter what it was, you didn't expect it more than 30 days. And then some people brought out the fact they could do it in a week. And we, for a time, and had great success, were able to do it in 36 hours, briefly. But people got used to it. And as you say, there are suppliers, at least prior to the supply chain problems, who were able to do it same day. So it's amazing how that has changed. And of course, part of the problem is the end buyer who used to think 30 days, that's where you got it, started thinking, well, all right, if you order today, you may not get it tomorrow, but you get it this week, assuming you're Monday to Friday. And now some things are going to be lucky to be delivered by Christmas. And another problem is the post office and other delivery services don't have the service they used to have. You used to mail even a package and it would be delivered in a brief period of time. And then, of course, people like UPS came in the industry, all over the world, and were able to deliver next day. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen. So it's a whole change from what used to be to what it is today. Will it go back eventually? Yes. But when, again, if I was smart, boy, would I be smart.
You could make a lot of money making that prediction.
Yes, if it was right, yes.
Yeah, you were right. And again, a reminder, if you've got questions for Norman, just type them in the chat box and we'll be sure to ask him as we move along. So looking at the pandemic in 2022, what do you foresee with ASI?
That's a good question, because we in the industry have sort of been lockstep for quite some time. The industry has grown amazingly. To just take a quick sidestep, years ago, Congress was considering a bill that would eliminate companies being able to write off what they spent on promotion products. I testified in front of Congress on behalf of the industry, and a senator said to me, Mr. Cohn, what are the sales of the industry? Truthfully, we didn't know, but I wouldn't want to say that. And so I said, oh, about 300 million. Luckily, what my mother told me, my nose did not grow longer. But that just gives you an idea, even if they had been, which they probably were not, 300 million in those days, the industry, even in the bad year of last year, was $20 billion, which just shows the growth of the industry. Now, your specific question was about next year. We're going to have COVID with us, hopefully not personally. It's not going to go away. My opinion, and again, I'm not a doctor, it's going to be like the flu. You're going to get shots every 6 months or maybe a year, and there will be people who get it, but there won't be nearly the deaths that there are now. So I believe that 2022 will be back to what 2019 sales, which was a record for our industry so far, were, and will grow from there. And you might want to know, I'm a very optimistic person. And I say often, the best is yet to come. And most people are too polite to say, how do you know that? But I'll give you the secret, in quotation mark secret, of how I know that. The total advertising expenditures in America of TV, newspapers, magazines, radio, everything else you can name, multimedia, everything, is approximately $270 billion. That's how much will be spent in a normal year, or has been at least. And our industry in its best year did less than 10% of that, 25 billion, and last year 20 billion. So since promotion products work, since they give you something tangible, instead of spending the money on a Super Bowl ad or some other ad, which is very impressive to your friends and neighbors, but doesn't really last in your memory, where when you give somebody and spend a few $1,000s on a product, I mean, on a group, on an order, with your logo, your company's logo, that lasts, and it lasts for years. We have statistics that show that. So because promotion products work, I believe, as it has been over the 70 years I've been in the industry, and what I believe will be the future, it's going to continue to grow. And instead of being less than 10%, I see it someday getting up to 15 or 20%. And when you start multiplying that by 270 billion, that's an extraordinary amount. So I know that's a lot longer answer than the question you asked was, but that's really why I'm confident that ASI and the industry will continue to grow.
I totally agree. I've realized over the years that our industry seems to be, when the economy starts going south, promotional products are one of the first things to get cut because it's an easy thing to cut from a budget. But when the industry starts, or when the economy starts coming back, it's one of the first to start growing as well, because of the fact it's an inexpensive way to reach a lot of people.
Exactly.
So
that's why you were a good salesman when you were a supplier.
We have a question from one of our listeners, Joel, who says that at one point back in 2009, he received a handwritten letter from you about condolences about a story on his father. And he just wondered, given technology and the way the world is today, do you still do that?
Yes and no. I try because I know many people in the industry, when something not wonderful, or more easily when it's wonderful something, to write a note. But I have to be honest and say my handwriting, as that note would show, is poor. So I do use a dictaphone and have it transcribed and sent out. But it's I do not have form letters, so that each one is individual. Many people who pass on, I've known personally. I kid some people that I remember one of your sponsors, Geiger. I called on them when they were in Newark, New Jersey, and then they moved to Maine and became much bigger, etc. But so I knew a lot of people for a long time. And it's easier, of course, when you write somebody who just had a wonderful thing happen. Maybe they were listed one of our Power 50 or some other event that was shows success and happiness for them. But they're all individual letters, but the days of my personally writing them, unfortunately, are no longer.
What about writing letters, people in general, especially say salespeople? Do you still think that has an impact, writing a personal letter or a personal thank you?
I think it has a tremendous impact because people are so used today to be bombarded by every type of media that it isn't as significant. When somebody personally takes the time to communicate with you about not just generally that, hey, the weather is wonderful, or big snow I heard you had, whatever, but about something personal, that makes a far bigger impact. When I started out as a distributor, every time I got an order, and there weren't that many times, I mean, in those days, I would write a thank you note to that person because I remember my first order I ever had. I remember the biggest order I ever had. Those are significant in those days. And so, yes, I think I would recommend to anybody in this industry, you cannot do badly by showing thanks, gratitude, caring, interest. So I recommend it.
I know when I was a salesperson, my grandmother and my mom both taught me, always write thank you notes. And I hopefully taught my kids that. But I remember going into people's offices, customers that I was calling on, and in their cubicle, they would have a thank you note I wrote them tacked up on their bulletin board because, as you said, so few people do it. So it does. Definitely. I think it does stand out, makes you stand out.
Yes. Well, that's again why you were successful.
I've read that you have a lot of hats. Is that true?
Well, at trade shows, those of you that have attended ASI shows know that I wear a red hat. We originally, my son, Matthew, started that at our first trade show a number of years ago, obviously, so that people could identify when you're an exhibitor, for example, in a booth, and you got a problem, you're looking for somebody to solve it. And there's 100 people in the aisle. They all look the same. I mean, they're individuals, but our group wears the red hats, the derbies going around. So when somebody has a problem, they can yell, hey, you with the red hat, or if they know us personally, hopefully, whatever their problem may be. And that's how that started. I don't really wear hats normally, except at shows, although I admire people that do. We are having our company celebrating sort of a year in next week, an Oktoberfest. And my outfit, my daughter Stephanie organizes those events, and she picks out outfits for us. And this outfit happens to have a hat. So I will look like a person who could be from Germany or that area where Oktoberfest started with a hat and a lederhosen and the whole outfit on. But normally, go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just going to say, so you're going to wear the lederhosen too? Oh boy.
Yes, oh yes, I am.
Oh, that'll be fun. It sounds like, and it's great that companies can still do those types of things, and I think that's important for a company too, as well, to recognize their people, to have fun, to do the types of events that bring people closer together, especially in these times.
Yes, because as I briefly mentioned, these times, there are two problems, among others. There's a shortage of employees. So the days that you could, if somebody retired or you were expanding, you could fill that spot quickly, are not so easy today because of the shortage. And then the income level expectations are significantly higher than they used to be. And so those two combinations mean that you need to not only just care for your people by having good programs, medical and insurance and all those things, but also to show them that you're involved in care. And I think one of the things that our family tries to do in our team, Tim Andrews, et cetera, is at an example trade show. There isn't a job that's beneath what we think we should be doing. So if I see a piece of paper on the floor that I think is littering, I pick it up. I don't have to tell somebody, I saw an aisle 3, whatever, I want you to go over there and do that. And I think people will respect you if you show that you are not the boss trying to tell them this is what you do. It's just a personal feeling that our family and Tim and our team have.
Well, kudos to you. That says a lot about the company to be that way.
Thank you.
I know that you worked with your, from what you told me in the interviews, you worked with your dad and you worked with your uncles a lot back at the beginning. Tell me about, other than financially, probably, what did you learn from your parents? What lessons did they teach you that you've been able to use throughout your career?
Well, my father was my mentor. He had 5 supermarkets, but let me qualify that. This is 80 years ago. What was considered a supermarket 80 years ago, at best would be a 7-Eleven today. That's no disrespect to 7-Eleven, just means that people are used to giant stores, 80 or 100,000 square feet. The stores we have are much smaller. I learned several things from many things from my father. One of which is that hard work is what brings success. But other things I learned, maybe even more significant, that if God smiles on your parade, you need to give back to the community. We're Jewish people, but all people deserve respect. And so on Friday night at our home, we had a charity box. And in early days, each member of the family put in 25 cents. Now you may laugh and say, so what? However, that was just an indication that if you care about the world you live in and the people, then you need to give back. It isn't just making success so you can go out and buy a boat or a fancy car or whatever it is that you're interested in. But it's important to remember there are a lot of less important, less fortunate people. As a quick example, ASI on behalf of the industry last year gave 1 million meals through Feeding America, because I don't care what city you live in, within, I guarantee, a short walk from where you live or work, there are people that are not getting enough food, not because of some shortage, because they don't have the economic wherewithal to do it. And so I think that one of the things I learned from my parents is it's important to give back. And another thing I learned, we had very little turnover of people. And that's not because we're so smart or anything else. It's that I think you have to show your people that A, you're an exciting business, and B, that there's a career. In other words, we've been lucky to grow. And as we grow, we try to promote from within. And if people join a company and feel there's a future, they're more likely, my opinion, to stay around that company than they are to take the first offer that somebody says, hey, you're making $500 a week, whatever you're making, some number, and I'll give you $100 more than you're making now. Now, that doesn't mean that all people will ignore all offers, but if you at least can show people that there is a future opportunity, there's a good chance they're going to see how it works. And particularly if you can prove, and we have people that start at a very low level in our company. Our senior financial officer is an example, a woman. We're big believers that when you have women in your business, you're going to do better. As I've often said to people, if my wife ran our business, we'd be more successful than we are now. And that's the truth, in my opinion. But anyway, back to the point that if you take care of your people, they'll take care of you. And so those are the things. I mean, you'd have to have several more hours than you have. Your listeners would fall asleep if I told you all the things I learned from my parents. But I was very lucky. They believed education was important. Philanthropy, as I mentioned, was important. But they had good values. My mother was born in Poland, was an immigrant. My wife, as you knew from a previous conversation, was a Holocaust survivor and an immigrant in her case, eventually from Australia, even though she was born in Poland. And again, I think it's important to remember there are many needy people, and whatever you can do to help them is great. And of course, to build a business with some success enables you to do those things. Those are some of the brief comments, and I'm sorry if I took too long to that I learned from my father.
Nope, you never take too long. One of the things too that you kind of alluded to is volunteering. And from what I've read, you do a lot of volunteering. You're on a lot of boards. How do you choose what you get involved with? Because we're all so busy these days. And, you know, we always tend to say to ourselves, well, I really don't have time to do that. So how do you go about choosing what it is you volunteer for or what board you're on?
Well, I'll answer that the opposite that you're asking. The best people, when you're caring about a cause or involved in this industry, are the people that are too busy doing other good things. I don't mean too busy playing Monopoly at home, but too busy. And so I get a lot of opportunities. I try to judge by, can I make a difference? In other words, there are boards where there are people obviously far smarter than I, far more successful than I. And if I can't make a difference, then they're better off finding it. And I've often said to people that ask me if I would do this or that, and I really believe my answer, that thank you for asking, but you would be better off finding somebody else who could make a bigger difference than the difference I could make. And I mean, there's no easy answers what you care about. My son, Matthew, many in the industry know, have two daughters with juvenile diabetes. He spends a tremendous amount of his effort to try to find a cure, not as a doctor, but to help an organization called JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, working towards a cure. And so obviously things that occur to your family, maybe a disease, whatever it might be, but leaving out those kinds of things, just doing something that you can feel good about and that you made a difference. I learned a long time ago, prestige doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's nice people say, I saw your name in the paper, I saw this, I saw that about you, assuming it was good things. My mother told me if she ever saw my name in the paper that wasn't nice, wasn't good, it better be a big amount that I did wrong, because she's going to punish me big for it. So I'm sorry to mention that. But anyway, that's really how I think and believe. And you can't take prestige to the grave. You can't take money to the grave. Oh, you can have it when you are no longer here. But bottom line is, believe in yourself and get involved with activities that are good for your business in some cases, but more importantly, good for the world. And, the millennials believe in some things that younger people, when I was young, a long time ago, never even thought about. The climate change. I'm not selling these, I'm just commenting that when you're hiring millennials, you have to be much more conscious of sustainability than I was in earlier days, or my father was in earlier days. That's, again, probably a longer answer than you were looking for.
And something that kind of ties into that, a lot of people look at them as the same, but I think they're totally separate, is mentoring. Has that something you've gotten involved in over the years as well, helping to mentor others that are coming up?
I've tried very much so. I believe in that significantly. I think if you can help people, even if their people are competitors, but more likely they're not competitors, though there have been that occasion, by giving advice from your experience, either what not to do based on my experience, because if people believe that every time I got up to bat, I hit a home run, they're fools. I struck out many times. Fortunately, not as many as I got lucky with, but I think it's important when you're young to find a mentor, whoever it may be. It could be a teacher in school in a very young age, could be your first employer, somebody in that business that will help you learn, because you only learn by doing, and everything you do is not going to work out. Well, if everything you do, a person does, is going to work out, wow, that's unbelievable. Almost impossible. So I try to teach them the things that I've learned at whatever level they're at, and I've tried to do that. And I encourage everybody to either have a mentor or be a mentor.
Good. I would totally agree. So as you know, Dale Denham was just appointed as the president of PPAI. Dale worked for ASI. A lot of people may not know that, for about 10 years.
Right.
To Geiger, where he was the chief technology officer. What do you see, or do you see any benefits of his being helming PPAI now, in terms of, because at one time, as we talked about in the podcast, ASI and PPAI kind of were at each other's throats, but that's, I think, long past. How do you see Dale's tenure as benefiting the industry and bringing maybe the two of you closer together, the two companies?
Dale is a very bright guy. He and his wife are lovely people. I still remember when we first interviewed him, my wife and I was impressed with him then. And I know he did a great job for Geiger. And I'm sure he's going to do a great job for the association. He believes not only in the industry that there is growth opportunities for PPAI. Hopefully they're not going to compete with ours, but yet he'll make the best decision with his board that he can. And hopefully we can work together. I try to write every new board member elected or appointed by PPA the same thing. This isn't a form letter, because most of the people I know well enough to talk about some aspect of the business they're in. But what I try to say is, if there's anything we can do, we ASI can do to help you, it's good for the industry. In other words, to wish your competitor or anybody else does poorly accomplishes nothing. if you can help the industry grow, unless you're a fool, you're going to grow also. You know, the water that lifts one boat's going to lift all boats. And I believe that significantly. So to have each part of this industry, suppliers, distributors, associations, all the groups do well is only going to help everybody. The bigger and better the industry is, the better it is for everybody. And I know that Dale will do a great job. I think PPA was lucky to get him. I'm sure Geiger was sorry to lose him. And he will do what he thinks and believes in the industry, and that's important.
Yep, I totally agree. I think it'll be good for the industry to have somebody younger and has that technology background, because I think our industry, just like every other industry, is so technology driven now. When I first got in this business, and obviously you too, there were no computers. You know, we hand wrote POs and we mailed everything off, and they mailed it back. The suppliers mailed back proofs. And when faxes first came in, that was like a godsend. And in fact, that reminds me, there was a story I read somewhere about you and faxes at a show where you were showing distributors what a fax could do. And at the time, it was pretty amazing to them. Tell me about that.
Well, when the fax machine was first introduced, we, that is ASI, actually in our booth, we had big booths, put two fax machines on opposite ends. And a distributor would come up talking about whatever business. And I said, you want to see something interesting? And they usually would say yes. And so I said, well, write something down here, maybe your wife's name or your birthday, you know, something that I couldn't have duplicated in advance, whatever you want to write down. And then walk over there, and it was a pretty good walk, 20, 30 feet. And you see that machine over there? Tell me what you see there. And they'd walk over, and how can that be? I wrote over here, you know, whatever they wrote. And so we introduced fax machines. And of course, as you point out, this is a technology industry. In fact, we used to define ourselves as printers and information services, which we provide both. But really, what we spend our investment in these days is technology. And if you'd have again said to me 10 years ago, forgetting longer than that, that we would spend what we're spending on technology, I again would try not to be disrespectful, but I would have to think to myself, how can I be? Somebody think that? But it's true. An amazing investments continue to be made. And I wish I knew what would be 10 years from now. I guess if I knew, I'd try to make sure we did it. But in any regard, it is amazing what technology is changing and will change our industry and the world, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I first got in the business, the register was obviously printed. You know, you got a register, and that was your gold to all the suppliers in the industry. And then I think it went on to a CD, and
right.
And now it's all obviously online. Do you even still print the register anymore?
No, there is no register in its traditional sense. We do print some books and lists of things, but not in the sense that there was when we, you know, originally that was. And then there was microfilm as well that we had for a while before we found computers. It's amazing. I think we have 150 people in our business whose total responsibility is various aspects of technology. And if somebody would have told me 10 years ago, what do you think the majority of your people would be? I'd have said, gosh, that's easy. They'd have been salespeople, because, you know, we need to sell the advertising and services, etc. And yes, we have a lot of great salespeople, but technology is a growing part of this industry and of our business.
So if you had the opportunity to do anything differently or do anything over again, is there anything you'd change about the way you've lived your career, the way you've run ASI?
Well, I don't take credit for running ASI, and that's the truth. Tim Andrews, really the last 14 or more years, has run ASI. The things I would do differently, I would have wished I met my wife earlier, so we'd have been together more than 56 years. I wish I'd have realized what this industry was possible earlier. So those are things that I wish. And of course, I've made mistakes. And of course, those mistakes, I wish I knew before I made them, then I probably would have made a different mistake. But in any regard, I've been lucky in life in every sense. Got 5 gorgeous children, 10 grandchildren. 7 of our 10 grandchildren have been, during their summer vacations, interns. Truthfully, are there things mostly the mistakes that I've made, I would, like to have known in advance. But my father taught me one of the things I should have mentioned is that Babe Ruth struck out more times than he hit home runs, and that's the truth. In other words, you don't learn a lot from people patting you on the back or from success. What you learn from it, assuming you learn from it, is failure, meaning if something doesn't work and you understand and figure out why it doesn't work so you don't make that same mistake twice, that really is what happens. And I guess I was a born optimist. I wake up every morning, knowing how lucky I am, but more significant than that, being thankful for what has happened in my life and hoping that I will someday be remembered, not because of whatever success I've had, and there have been plenty of people having bigger and better, but I would be remembered as somebody that influenced lives in this industry and maybe beyond this industry to the positive standpoint. That would be more important to me than if somebody said, oh, he's the richest guy in the cemetery, or some other foolish comment that means nothing. I guess that's sort of a quick summary of what I would like to be remembered by.
And that was my next question. So you answered it. What do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I'm also hopeful that we're multi-generation, 4th generation, as I mentioned, have done internships. I'm hopeful that after I'm gone, that our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, we have children, grandchildren, but great-grandchildren, et cetera, would find this industry as exciting and as interesting as I do. We have a rule, or whatever the right word is, that you have to if you want to join our industry, our business, you have to graduate college and you have to work somewhere else 2 years or more. And some might work forever somewhere else. But the point is, you can't come and apply until that's happened. And at some point, if you want to, then you apply, you come to HR. And if you're offered an opportunity, not because your last name or your relationship, but because of whatever your qualifications are, and accept it, then you've got to work twice as hard as anybody else. So I'm hopeful that the ongoing generations will continue to find the industry as exciting as I do. Stephanie and Matthew love it as well. It's a exciting industry, not just because of ideas. As I mentioned, you can see things you could never visualize that have logos on them that sell and do well. I would never have thought of. But more than that, it's the fact that you get to meet and be with people that are real people. We don't have titans or whatever the giants of the world are today in our industry, or at least maybe I'm being disrespectful. Maybe there are some. But anyway, you get to meet and talk to and become friends with people that care. And you know what? That is what it's all about. The rest, whether you're we have a top 40 list of distributors, suppliers, whether you're on top of that list or not even on the list, that's not what life's about. What life's about is, what are you doing to help the industry, yourself, your family, and the world?
And kind of on that point, I think you'd agree that this industry, more so than others, I think, maybe less so than some others, but I think one of the keys of this industry is relationships. It's a relationship business, both if you're selling to customers, if you're calling on, suppliers, whatever, both sides of the business is relationship based.
Yes, I'm a big believer in relationship. I think that that's one of the most significant differences. And I think because in our industry, you're not basically dealing with giant companies, and that's no disrespect to those that are thought of as giant companies, but that you're dealing with real people, and that if they're a customer, something, I tell our people we're in a simple business, and that's true. If we help our distributors and suppliers grow, they're going to stay members. And if we don't, they're going to do what you and I would do. They're going to go leave us, and we don't want them to leave us. But that's the same thing of whether you're selling an end buyer, whether you're buying from Asia or wherever you may be buying from, whether you're running a factory in America that's doing the imprinting. It all depends on what it is that you are bringing to the party. And if you can't bring anything to the party, well, I guess if you were born rich or something, maybe that's not to worry, but I don't know many people like that. Anyway, again, that's probably a brief summary of some of the things I think about.
And one of the last questions I have is, I just wrote an article, there's so many movies out now about superheroes and their superpowers. And what do you think your superpower is?
The truth is, I think luck. That's the truth. In meeting my wife, in getting into this industry, in even starting as a distributor when I was a junior in high school, it could all have gone some different ways. I was accepted in some fairly prestigious colleges, but I chose to try to develop the distributorship that I started. Broke my mother's heart briefly because I didn't go to college until the middle of the year when everybody else in my class was going then. And I was the first one in our family ever to go to college. And when I told her I wasn't going to go because I was trying to build this business until 6 months later, she was very heartbroken. Fortunately, I went. But all my point is, I could have gone so many different ways. And for some reason, and I believe it was luck, the choices mostly that I've made worked out. Could somebody else have made more of them? Probably. And I guess the one thing I didn't talk about, other than quickly having to do with my going to a very non-prestigious college, is I'm a big believer in education. We spend, and I'm proud of this, $1 million a year on education programs in this industry. Because if we can help people grow and learn, the industry is only going to go one way, and that's up. Mm-hmm. And if we save that money, yeah, we make more money, I'm sure, for a brief time, but the industry isn't going to go the right direction. And the other thing that I'm proud of, we have an intern program. I'm not talking about our family. I believe there were nearly 300 interns this year, college students who during their summer vacation, maybe 10 of them worked at ASI, and the others we had, suppliers or distributors took as interns for the summer. And to me, that accomplishes something. First of all, it gives these young people some knowledge of what promotion products are. And who knows what they're going to be in the future. Maybe they're going to be a giant success. Maybe they're going to be a purchasing agent or whatever. But at least they now understand. And they also gave them something to do during the summer worthwhile. Those are things I'm far more proud of than if somebody said to me, I'm trying to think what could be a ridiculous comment. That I have been selected as the smartest guy in our industry. What a joke that would be. But if that happened, that doesn't mean anything. If I was selected the luckiest, I could see, okay, that's possible. But I really, I love the industry, as I hope you can tell, and it's so exciting. And there's such a great future for everybody that wants to dedicate their time and effort to the industry, that people will be proud of themselves.
Well, for being so successful, you're very humble, Norman, and it's been a pleasure to talk with you today.
Steve, I appreciate, as I commented at the beginning before we went live, you and your partner did an amazing job of the first interview and making it into 3 parts. I got some very nice comments, not based, in my opinion, on what I said, but on how you develop it in those 3 parts. And so I like what you're doing. Keep it up. And hopefully someday in the future, I'll have something worth saying that you'll invite me back.
Thank you. Brandon, any last thoughts?
No, I thank you to both of you guys. This wouldn't be possible without having amazing guests like you, Norman. Thank you so much for everything you've done to build the industry and to continue to progress it. What you and your family are doing is phenomenal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brandon, thank you. But I also want to tell you this. When you go to sleep or wake up, don't have to worry that I'm going to come and take your job. Not because I might not like it, because I couldn't do it. You are extraordinarily smart and you deserve what you're accomplishing. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Norman. Thank you so much. And Steve, I thank you for all the hard work you put into this. Your writing skills and the voice, the way you're just able to carry this whole show is phenomenal. Thanks for everything that you're doing for this too, man.
Well, you're the brains behind it in terms of doing all the technology because I couldn't do that. So thank you for your hard work as well. It's definitely a team effort.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, speaking of the technology, I am going to attempt to shut this NASA thing down. Thank you so much to everybody out there who joined us. This was a fantastic meet and greet. If you do have questions afterwards as well, this will always be up on Facebook. So if you're watching this later, go ahead and throw those questions in there and we'll see if we can't get them answered. Mm-hmm. But that has been Profiles meet and greet of series 3 with Norman Cohn. Thank you so much, you guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Look forward to seeing you in person one day soon.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Good health. Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.